In this video, we will be replacing the passenger side door lock actuator in this 2008 Hyundai Elantra. Through the passenger side door, we can gain access to our door panel, and we want to begin by removing our corner trim piece where we have a small speaker. Taking a look at my wiring harness for the speaker, we have a small tab on the back side that we can depress and then wiggle that free. Next, we will shift our focus to the door handle location, and if we take a look inside that door handle piece, we have a small access panel. We can use a flathead screwdriver or a trim removal tool to open that up, and this will reveal one Phillips head screw. And with that screw removed, we can remove our trim piece. Next, we will take a look at our grab handle, and we have an additional Phillips head screw, possibly even a cover plate on yours. After that, we will focus on the bottom of the door, and using a trim removal tool, we will release the tabs located around the perimeter, and we should be able to pivot that out and lift it straight up, and that should be released. Now, we do have a wiring harness on the back that we need to remove. If we take a look at our replacement actuator, we have two cables coming out of one side of it, and we have one additional cable coming out of a different side of it. And as I take a look at the inside of my door, I can clearly see those two lines that come out of the first side of it. Those are connected to my door latch handle, and on the edge of my door I can see where that actuator sits behind the door frame. So my next step will be to disconnect the door handle latch and work these cables off. And taking a look at this, I have 3 Phillips head screws holding this on. And then to gain access to my actuator, I need to remove the entire interior door panel, which has my window regulator on it. This has a series of screws around the perimeter, 8 screws in total, and these are 10mm screws. And with a trim removal tool, I can work that loose. And with that a little bit loose, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect a bunch of my wiring harnesses and pull the clips. This will give me a little bit more flexibility with this panel. So we first have our speaker, then we have our powered mirror, then we have our window regulator motor, and then each of these bundles of wire are just taped onto the retaining clip. We then have 2 access ports, and then I'm going to temporarily reconnect my door panel so I can have access to the power controls for the window. And we'll connect our regulator motor temporarily again, and we'll turn our key to the on position, and we'll roll the window down a little bit, and we can lower the window until we see our retaining bolts. And then we can turn the car back off and disconnect these wiring harnesses. And each of these is a 10mm bolt as well. And you want to be a little careful because the window is loose at this point. And to keep this window from sliding down on me during this repair, I'm going to manually raise the window and apply some gaff tape to this to help hold it in place temporarily. And at this point, I'll shift my focus back to that door latch handle, and using needle nose pliers, I can work that cable out. And you might need to articulate the door lock. To get to that second one. and then we'll be working those two seals back through the opening. And then our actuator is held on by 3 T30 Torx head screws. And before we attempt to remove this panel, we will disconnect 2 wiring harness clips and remove 1 grommet. This is just going to give us a little bit additional flexibility. And at this point, I'm going to work my cables through. On the outer edge of our door, we have a cap that needs to be removed. And inside that cap, we have an 8mm bolt. This will allow us to work off the handle end. We then want to take our handle component and slide it rearward toward the back of the car. We can kind of wiggle that loose. Then that'll slide straight out. We then have a little trim piece covering up a Phillips head bolt. And this is an 8mm. And a little grommet. We have about 4 real small tabs that are kind of holding this in place. If we wiggle it from the inside, we can work those tabs off and see if we can work that piece out. Now we do have a wiring harness on the bottom. If we take a look at this on the bench, we can articulate our component, and we can see that we have a cable in there. Our goal is to try and work that cable free. And we can see we're held in on the back side. And I'm going to bring in my new component and hook that up. And back on my old component, I do have another piece I need to transfer. And onto our new piece. And then connect up my cable. And this can be replaced back on the vehicle. And we want to line that up with the outside. And to help hold this in place, I will be installing those T30 Torx head screws. Then I can work on reinstalling that door handle, beginning with that little grommet and adding my 8mm Phillips head screw. And then that little trim piece. And then my handle can come next, beginning with the little trim piece. I'm going to slide my handle in and shift it to the right, followed by my end of handle trim, that 8mm screw, and the plug. And a quick check to make sure everything works as it should. Back to the inside of my door, I have my wiring harness. I need to feed through my 2 cables, and I have those wiring clamps on the back side of my panel. And at this point, I'm going to seat that panel as best as I can and add my 10mm bolts. Add my grommet, and I'm ready to hook up the cables on my door handle latch. You'll want to make sure that it is oriented correctly. Double check to make sure everything lines up properly and that everything seems to work, and then we can install that in place. Installation of the window can come next, and we want to slide the window down until we feel it seat on the tracks, and then install our 10mm bolts. And at this point, our window is looking really good. Our door lock mechanism is looking good as well. I can go ahead and close my covers to access my window hold down bolts. I can also re-tape all of my wiring harnesses back in place. Then we have our wiring harness for the speaker. We have our window regulator motor wiring harness. We have our powered mirror up towards the top. Followed by our trim pieces and hold down screws. And lastly, our corner trim with our speaker.